Nightline is proudly brought to you by TGIO.
The PM moves to ease Japan's worries over industrial conflict. A couple ordered to pay up for abusing a gay neighbour, and astronaut Shannon Lucid prepares to come home.
From National 9 News, this is Nightline with Jim Waley.
Good evening. Prime Minister Howard's attempts to butter up Japanese business leaders may have backfired. In a speech in Tokyo, Mr. Howard dropped references to potential industrial and employment problems in Australia caused by the government's reforms. The opposition claims Mr. Howard's self-censorship will leave a question mark in Japanese minds over whether they can trust the Australian government. From Tokyo, Peter Harvey reports.
They rolled out the red carpet for the Prime Minister's arrival in the Japanese capital. The agenda for Mr. Howard's 2 days here weighed heavily towards trade and investment. The first meeting was with Japan's all-powerful Trade and Industry Ministry. Japan's major concern at the moment is industrial unrest in Australia, troubles that threaten the steady flow of raw materials to this country. In Tokyo, Mr. Howard's major speech to business leaders laid heavy emphasis on modernising Australia's workplace.
My government, importantly, ladies and gentlemen, is also committed to reforming Australia's industrial relations system. It will produce a more efficient and a more flexible labour market.
That's the message the Japanese want to hear, but Mr. Howard also made some significant last-minute changes to his speech. Hints that job losses and union unrest will worsen as the industrial relations system is changed were dropped from his speech just before he got to his feet. Back in Australia, the opposition was very quick to seize on what Mr. Howard didn't say.
John Howard in Tokyo censored his own speech. I think that it will cause them to put a question mark over the willingness of this government to level with them.
Mr. Howard originally planned to also tell his Japanese audience that his government will be doing things differently to its Labour predecessor, but those remarks were also dropped from the speech. Mr. Howard wants the central message here to be a reassuring business as usual. Mr. Howard's due to return to Australia on Saturday, but even then his foreign policy issues won't be over. The Dalai Lama's visit to Australia remains highly controversial, with the Chinese government again expressing its extreme displeasure at plans for Mr. Howard to meet the exiled Tibetan religious leader. That's not likely to deter John Howard. He's told the Chinese that Australians prize religious freedom and Australian Prime Ministers remain free to meet whoever they like. Peter Harvey, reporting for Nightline from Tokyo.
The Black Hawk inquiry in Western Australia today heard a minute-by-minute account of the Army helicopter collision that left 18 men dead and 10 injured. Apparently, at least one pilot realised the crash was imminent and was attempting to take evasive action.
The inquiry must decide why the accident happened. Today we learned how. Major Rod Newnham, head of the investigation team, said the fateful chain of events began minutes before the crash, when the formation of 4 helicopters realised they were about 200 metres left of their intended flight path. Looking for target drop zones and wearing night vision goggles, the pilot of the lead helicopter, known as Black Hawk 1, banked right. He saw Black Hawk 2 and, realising a collision was imminent, tried to turn back. The rotor blades cut into Black Hawk 2's fuselage, Black Hawk 1 shedding its blades at a great rate. The lead helicopter was stripped of its rotor blades, on fire and plummeting to earth. Investigators say the crash was not survivable. The fact that 2 soldiers did escape with their lives put down to sheer luck. Black Hawk 2 spun 360 degrees before hitting the ground, its ruptured fuel tanks exploding in flames. 18 men were killed in the incident. Next of kin at the hearing today were reduced to tears as they listened to details of the crash. Inquiry head Brigadier Paul O'Sullivan has warned some of the evidence to come will be suppressed to avoid revealing secret SAS anti-terrorist tactics. Michael Southwell for Nightline.
A Sydney pizza delivery worker has appeared in court charged with the murder of 20-year-old Edwina Powell. Ms Powell was bashed and stabbed to death at her flat at Kingsgrove in Sydney's south on Tuesday. 19-year-old Ruben Diaz is alleged to have killed her after taking a pizza to her flat. It's also claimed he attacked a neighbour who ran to the victim's aid. Police told the court that traces of blood were found in Diaz's car and a blood-stained knife and clothing at his home. Diaz has been ordered to undergo psychiatric assessment. The man who allegedly threatened to harm his ex-girlfriend, who's in traction in a Perth hospital, might never be charged. 31-year-old Ivan Gavran will undergo psychiatric tests to determine if he's mentally fit to face court. Gavran tied himself to Natalie Babbitt's traction equipment, keeping police at bay for 50 hours. Doctors feared Babbitt, who's recovering from a broken neck, could have been crippled. The siege ended when Gavran fell asleep and police overpowered him. A high school student has been suspended and 2 others interviewed after a kangaroo was bashed to death on the New South Wales south coast. It happened on remote Depot Beach near Bateman's Bay during a school excursion on Tuesday. The New South Wales Education Minister says a Year 11 student struck the animal with a large rock, breaking its leg. It's believed 2 students then killed the animal with iron bars and took photographs of the body. The youths could face up to a year's jail or $4,000 fines. Taking cheap shots at a homosexual neighbour has proved expensive for a Sydney couple. In its first such decision, the Equal Opportunity Tribunal has fined them $50,000.
Dobrovoy Marinkovic and his wife publicly harassed their neighbour, calling him a pufter and a faggot. The homosexual man, who has HIV and cannot be named, lodged a complaint with the Equal Opportunity Tribunal. It today found their abuse, which included threats of physical violence, incited hatred against him. The psychological stress exacerbated his condition, which has now reached a fairly advanced stage of HIV infection. There can be little conduct more serious. Marinkovic says he's ashamed of his behaviour.
I'm happy to give him an apology. I gave him before apology, but he doesn't appreciate that, you know. He ignored me.
The tribunal ordered the pensioner and his estranged wife to place letters of apology in the building where they lived and pay their victim $50,000.
It's a very big price for me to pay that. I don't know how to pay that. I don't know how.
He made every attempt to resolve the matter. Police were contacted on numerous occasions. He applied for an apprehended violence order and obtained it. That order was breached by one of the respondents.
Following the test case, the president of the New South Wales Anti-Discrimination Board, Chris Puplik, defended the anti-vilification laws, even though they do not cover heterosexuals.
It's been a question of saying who has suffered most from this degree of harassment and vilification, and let's try addressing the worst case scenarios first.
But New South Wales Upper House MP Fred Nile says such laws should cover all the community.
I don't believe any certain group should be put on a pedestal with special laws just for that particular lobby group.
A similar bill to protect homosexuals in Western Australia has been thrown out by government MPs who believe that equal opportunity laws impede everyone else's civil rights.
The government is of the view that legislation is not required.
The gay lobby has accused the coalition of being homophobic. It says there's nothing in WA to stop discrimination against homosexuals. Raymond Dale for Nightline.
After the break, Melbourne's big storms, and Bob Dole takes a fall.
On a current affair.
Children and guns.
Kids compete against one another and makes them better people in the long run.
For these kids, it's an official school sport.
It's fun. I really like the sport.
But psychologists say it's sheer madness.
Guns are actually made to kill.
To get to your nearest TGIO branch, first you have to go right. Then go right again until you get to the end. Now you head back due west for 1 block. Once you've done that, go south, but make sure you stop before you go too far. Finally, continue for another block and stop, then knock twice.
Getting to your nearest TGIO office is as easy as dialling their new statewide access number, 132 800. So call TGIO for peace of mind.
With its 2-litre, 139 brake horsepower engine and its sports tune suspension, Hyundai's new coupe is definitely not for the faint-hearted.
Oh, jeepers, creepers, where'd you get those people?
Classic jazz from the golden era in Jazz Greats.
every fortnight, a different star on CD or cassette. 60 minutes of jazz.
Just found joy.
And a magazine to give you the stories behind the sounds.
You're mean to me. Why
Part 1, Billie Holiday. Out now, $3.95.
Budget Liquor and Rebel Liquor combined are #1 statewide, giving you Dewar's Scotch Whisky $23.50, Jacob's Creek Range $6.95 each, Jim Beam Black Bourbon $31.95. Budget and Rebel, #1 statewide for liquor.
And now your Estee Lauder gift is at Maya. With mascara, enlightened makeup, and 2 full-size lipsticks. Valued at over $100, it's yours with any Estee Lauder purchase of $38 or more. Now at Maya.
Melbourne's Mornington Peninsula has a big clean-up ahead after being hit by a powerful storm. Winds in excess of 100 kilometres an hour brought down trees and power lines. Some residents had a narrow escape as trees crashed through their houses. The wild weather was also blamed for 4 deaths on the roads. A Wollongong mother has an anxious wait to find out if her daughter has contracted AIDS or another serious illness after putting her hand in a waste bin containing used syringes. 22-month-old Paige Benatti was pricked by the needles in a doctor's surgery, her skin punctured at least 10 times. Although Paige has already undergone tests for AIDS and hepatitis C, the results won't be known for at least 12 weeks. Helicopters and boats are tonight searching the Brisbane River for a 5-year-old girl thought to have fallen from a ferry landing near Queensland University. The SES helicopters are fitted with infrared equipment, while at least 7 boats, some commandeered from a rowing club, are conducting a line abreast sweep from bank to bank. It's a rock star's nightmare, and now it's become Björk's reality. A crazed fan has killed himself, but only after sending the Icelandic singer a bomb designed to drench her with concentrated sulfuric acid.
Björk has her own reputation for weirdness, but this was too strange even for her.
It's just kind of a very sad thing, you know, obviously when somebody shoots their face off, you know. It's terrible.
In a fit of obsession, jealousy and racist rage, a fan, 21-year-old Ricardo Lopez, shot himself dead in his run-down Miami apartment. He had videotaped his suicide. A camera found still rolling, containing a tape marked, "Last Day, Ricardo Lopez." But just before pulling the trigger, he had mailed a homemade bomb to Björk, a device containing sulfuric acid which would have disfigured, perhaps killed, whoever opened the package.
He alludes to a relationship that she was having with a black man, and in his words, that was unacceptable.
Tipped off by the FBI, Scotland Yard intercepted the package in London and destroyed it.
Apparently acid was sprayed in all directions, so it was a very nasty device.
Björk has always had an intense relationship with her public. In February, this incident on her way to Australia. But this time, the star has been shaken. She has not slept since learning of Lopez's act of twisted obsession. Hugh Remington for Nightline.
Re-elected in this week's poll, Alija Izetbegovic, Bosnia's Muslim president through nearly 4 years of war, has now vowed to work for reunification and justice in his shattered country. Izetbegovic will have to share his post with a Serb and a Croat as part of the UN agreement, but believes a lasting peace is possible.
For 4 years, Bosnia's Muslim community has had little to celebrate. Today, all that changed. A burst of nationalistic fervour greeting the news that Muslim leader Alija Izetbegovic would head Bosnia's collective presidency.
Alija Izetbegovic has received the largest number of the votes.
While the leading Serb and leading Croat candidate will share a 3-way presidency, Mr. Izetbegovic is now effectively Bosnia's head of state. The result greeted with relief by Western governments. The Muslim leader has vowed to reunite the country. His hardline Serb opponent, who finished second in the vote, had campaigned on a platform of secession. As expected, most voted along nationalistic lines, Croats voting for Croat candidates and so on. Today's result greeted with little joy in Serb neighbourhoods. International observers are adamant much work lies ahead.
Economic and social issues, the return of the refugees, the further development of
of democracy in the country.
Mark Ferguson for Nightline.
Princess Diana has caused a flurry on a small Greek island, attending the funeral of a young law student she first met 2 years ago when she was visiting a London hospital. Yanis Kaliviotis died waiting for a heart-lung transplant. Diana flew to Greece on board the private jet of a shipping magnate. US presidential candidate Bob Dole has suffered a tumble and a stumble, all in the one day. Campaigning in California, 73-year-old Dole was greeting supporters when he fell over a railing. He was not seriously injured, joking that he may have earned his third Purple Heart. Earlier, making a comparison with his campaign and a pitcher who threw a no-hitter innings, Dole referred to the Brooklyn Dodgers. Problem is, the Dodgers moved to Los Angeles 40 years ago. American astronaut Dr. Shannon Lucid has welcomed her compatriots on board the Russian space station Mir. The 53-year-old mother of 3 has spent a record 6 months in space, but still has another week before she begins the journey home.
6 weeks behind schedule and not a moment too soon. The first glimpse of freedom for Dr. Shannon Lucid as the crew of Atlantis entered Mir. There was no disguising her joy that her record-breaking confinement in space was finally coming to an end. She arrived on Mir in March, greeting her fellow cosmonauts with enthusiasm.
Well, Kevin wanted me to say something that I just want to say I'm happy to be here. And Kevin did a great
But little did she know that a mechanical fault and 2 hurricanes would mean that she would become stranded in space. As Mission Control looked on today, the formalities began.
Valeria is saying that each of us has to have some bread and salt, which is the traditional Russian greeting.
Shannon Lucid hasn't appreciated all the Russian traditions, particularly the cosmonauts' insistence that she did the cleaning. By the time Atlantis returns to Earth, Dr. Lucid will have spent 188 days in space, a record for a woman. For now, a big hug from her replacement and rescuer, veteran astronaut John Blaha. Anya Sitharam, reporting for Nightline.
In a moment, Asian nervousness over Australia's union problems. Paul Lynham speaks with Industrial Relations Minister Peter Reith.
Wowie zowie, citizens. You remember me?
What about me?
Who was that? I haven't got a clue.
Remember us?
What's up, Skip?
We're back.
Who are all these people?
I am totally confused.
Here's a clue.
Over 60 fantastic guests, 40 years of TV stars, then and now, hosted by Don Lane.
If you don't remember who I am, you might remember him.
Remembering is only half the fun.
40 years of television.
8:30 Friday.
The action's back this weekend with 2 big clashes Saturday and Sunday. At North Hobart Oval, there's a replay of last year's grand final between Clarence and North Launceston. And on the coast, the Dockers battle the Blues in the knockout first semi-final. Don't forget there are great prizes to win, like a trip to Bali for 14 nights or $500 for bringing a banner with the Win Television logo. Plus, fans are welcome onto the Oval at half-time at all finals matches. Remember, don't sit at home this weekend, make a stand and get to the footy.
Nissan's 30th anniversary celebrations are still going strong. Micras have been slashed to $14,990 drive away. And we're also doing great deals on the whole Nissan range. So get into your nearest Nissan dealer and join the party.
When the croak gets beyond a joke, try good-tasting Allen's Butter Menthol. The butter soothes the throat and the menthol clears the head.
I could win the Brownlow Medal this year.
Well, actually, I'm going to get the John Coleman, Brownlow Medal, Norm Smith, and the Grand Final Medal.
Collect all 4 AFL Centenary medals. They're $1 each with any burger or muffin purchase at McDonald's.
Don't shop around for paint. Guns have Wattle 4-litre premium acrylic in low sheen, satin and flat for only $38.95. Only $38.95. And Wattle Estopol 4 litres for just $38 at Guns. Just $38. Guns have the full Wattle range and everything else you need. Sally's Sugar Soap and Polyfiller only $4.95. No more gaps, just $3.95. And liquid nails only $3.50 at Guns. So if you're painting, don't shop around. See Guns all stores.
Did Prime Minister Howard say too much or too little in his controversial speech to Japan's business chiefs? Opposition leader Kim Beazley's attack cuts both ways. He claims Mr Howard appeared sneaky by leaving out a suggestion that his policies might spark more industrial rows. Mr Beazley also says the speech talked Australia down. But Industrial Relations Minister Peter Reith rejects the criticism. In Canberra, Mr Reith is with Paul Lynham.
Peter Reith, welcome to Nightline.
Thank you very much.
Which version of the PM speech in Japan was accurate and honest? The original one that suggested Australia might face some more industrial unrest, or the final sanitised one that made no such admission?
Hang on, I mean, it's not sort of two versions in the sense that, you know, one somehow to be kept in the bottom drawer. He put that speech out. There's nothing wrong with that statement. I said that myself. I said it this morning.
Well, what are the transition costs, quote, in productivity and employment that the original version of the speech said would be outweighed by the longer-term gains? I mean, how bad is it going to get in the short term?
Where have you been? I mean, the MUA, the waterfront, are out today, have been out today, because they are complaining about what Mr Howard has said in Indonesia, so they say, plus they're complaining about the fact that we are changing the law which says that you're not allowed to run those sort of primary boycotts. So now, of course you've got a few unions raking over the coals, and it's costing Australia. But so that's a few unions.
This is as bumpy as it gets?
Well, this is par for the course from some of these people. And we've had this in Australia before. A new government comes in, we try to correct the imbalance in the industrial relations system, have a fairer system to create more jobs, and you get a few unions who decide to pull a blue. Now, but this is not the lull before the storm. This is just a, you know, baby storm before the lull.
But where is the wisdom in our Prime Minister going to Tokyo, getting the top business leaders of Japan and talking about our economic structural problems, lack of flexibility and competitiveness of our labour market, constraints on small business? I mean, not much of a boost.
Look, this is no surprise to the Japanese. They had Bill Kelty writing to one of the power companies over there saying, oh, you shouldn't deal with an Australian company.
Rub it in up there?
Well, you say, put my hand on my heart. Let's be honest about it. There's no news in this to them. What they are looking for is a government that says, here are some of the problems, and we're going to fix them. And that's why we've introduced our legislation into the Parliament. And look, the real pressure in this whole debate is not on us, it's on people like Kim Beazley, who are silent when you have the waterfront, you know, basically trying to run Australia's foreign policy.
Well, if the Maritime Union is kicking up at this stage, what on earth is going to happen when your legislation eventually becomes law? It will be within the next few years, won't it, by the way?
Well, I think we'll do better than the next few years.
You wouldn't win any prizes for speed so far,
well, we've proceeded on a very sensible basis. We said after the election we'd introduce a package. We did that in May. Yes, we've been held up by the Senate, but that's Mr Beazley holding us up in the Senate. The bill
hang on, your people in the Senate couldn't negotiate with a dog.
No, well, hang on. Well, I don't think that's a nice way to refer to opposition senators. But, no, we have the bill in the Senate, and we expect the debate to resume in a fortnight's time.
And through by Christmas?
Well, I'm looking to see it both through before Christmas and furthermore that we have an implementation date for that on the, 1st of February, 1st of March, something of that order.
And then what happens on the waterfront?
Well, that's up to the waterfront. I mean,
It's not up to you?
Well, of course, our responsibility is to make sure we have a fair law and that unions who think they're above the law in future, will need to address the consequences of illegal behaviour. But, let's cross our bridges when we get to them. We're not looking for a bun fight. What we want is some sensible reform because it means more jobs.
Peter Ray, thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Jim, back to you.
Thank you, Paul Lynham. And still to come on Nightline, the finance and weather and Eddie Maguire sport. And Eddie, Essendon resolves their coaching situation.
Yes, that's right, Jim. Kevin Sheedy has re-signed for another 2 years. Also tonight, AFL and League finals wrap-ups and Australian rugby's rising star.
Hey,
it's Nerd Day.
It's contagious.
You said it was Nude Day?
It's an all-natural high.
It won't happen overnight, but it will happen.
This week, Danny DeVito, Mark Morrison, Def Effects and Stephen Cummings. Saturday on Win.
Take a better picture with Minolta at Camera House. Experience the latest Vectus technology from Minolta. The all-new Vectus S1 SLR kit has interchangeable lenses, easy drop-in film loading, 3 format sizes, and no more fussy negatives. Just a full colour index that makes reprints easy. And who's got the best deals on Minolta Vectus? Camera House. Great buys available now from Stallard's Camera House, Hobart, Launceston, Devonport and Ulverston.
Take better pictures or your money back at Camera House.
The car actually span apparently and threw me out and then span over the top of me. I came to about 5 weeks later. I had pipes and everything running out of me. That's when they told me that they'd taken the leg, the spleen and the lung. It was off the show, you know, off the show, you know, off the show.
ARB four-wheel drive safety improvements. ARB, Australia's largest manufacturer of four-wheel drive accessories and equipment.
One pepper steak with the Chinese vegetables and one shark grilled barramundi. Very good, madame, monsieur. Some more orders for you, Bob, my friend.
No worries, Renee, matey.
At Barbecues Galore, we've got the best advice and the best range at the best prices. So there's no limit to what you can do on a Barbecues Galore barbecue. Barbecues Galore, your outdoor cooking and camping store.
Good evening. Essendon has ended the speculation over the coaching future of Kevin Sheedy, re-signing him for another 2 years. The move comes as the Bombers prepare for the preliminary final against Sydney. Andrew Bensley has more.
It's rare these days that fans get the opportunity of getting so close to their idols, but tonight at Essendon, that was the case. Earlier on the training track, all eyes were on the players attempting to overcome injuries. Mark Mercuri has been selected after his back showed steady improvement. Paul Barnard wasn't picked because of an ankle problem, while Chris Danaher returns after fracturing a cheekbone nearly 7 weeks ago.
He deserves his opportunity. He played in the seconds, played well.
Sydney have named Tony Lockett at full forward despite not training tonight. He hobbled from the track on Tuesday after a groin injury flared.
Well, all along said he was going to play, so, well, no, we're not playing any games.
Well, I'm planning my team to play against Lockett, so that's what we always do.
In the Saturday afternoon clash, North Melbourne will go in as favourites against Brisbane. That's despite disappointments in the last 2 years.
Obviously, the last two times we've made the preliminary and haven't had good results, so we're really looking forward to push a step further this year.
Meanwhile, after spending hours during the week in the hyperbaric chambers, the Bears pair, Michael Voss and Matthew Clark, have both been selected. It'll be the first game Brisbane have played at the MCG since week 1 of the finals last year. The opportunity of playing in front of a big crowd against one of the best clubs going around at the MCG is a great task. Andrew Bensley for Nightline.
In rugby league, Manly's hopes of playing Terry Hill in Sunday's semi-final against Cronulla look doubtful after his ankle injury flared again. At North Sydney, Billy Moore is likely to play against the Saints on Saturday. Brett Dallas, though, is far less certain.
Moore broke the good news about his hamstring to coach Peter Louis at training.
Earlier in the week, I would have said I was 50-50, but seeing we're talking a numbers game, I think I'm about 80-20 now, and that's very encouraging to me.
The bad news concerns Brett Dallas. The winger needed pain-killing injections on a foot injury to make it through the Brisbane game a fortnight ago. Still absent from training, he faces a fitness test tomorrow morning.
He's swimming today, and I think he's had that session in the hyperbaric chamber. He's also been to our physio, so he's doing everything possible he can to get on the paddock.
Even without Dallas, the Bears still boast plenty of strike power out wide. Ben Eichen finished last season in Gold Coast reserve grade. This year, he's North's top try scorer.
And then a big, strong run by Eichen.
Of course, there was a turmoil back on the Gold Coast last year, and I knew I had to go to another club, but I never pictured I'd go this far.
One player who may go no further in this final series is Manly's Terry Hill. After suffering ligament damage in his foot against the Roosters, Hill seemed convinced he'd play against Cronulla, but his first run in 12 days has created doubts.
I had a run today and I'm not really happy with the way it pulled up, so, you know, I've really got to sit down and think about what I'm going to do.
Hill will be given until Sunday to prove his fitness. Andrew McKinlay for Nightline.
Well, there's a fine line that separates good footballers from the truly great. Wallaby fullback Matt Burke certainly has the class to one day be ranked among the very best, not just when he's wearing the green and gold, but also when he turns out for his Sydney club Eastwood, which plays Warringah in tomorrow's night's major semi-final. Mark Barlin has this look at Burke's blitzing form.
When you get too, I suppose, regulated and too conformed, I think that's when you get a bit bored. You've got to try things that are out of the ordinary and take them on it.
Whether he's bullocking up a blind side when he should be flattened or screaming under a high ball. Australian, New South Wales and Eastwood fullback Matt Burke is a man people pay hard-earned to see. His ad-lib explosions resonate with Campese or Ella. In the new and serious days of professionalism, that carefree attitude could conceivably be frowned on.
I'm going to games taking the same attitude as last year, as the amateur attitude, so to speak. I'm going out there enjoying myself, and that's what comes first. And if you enjoy yourself, that's when the good football comes from that.
He's really in a league of his own in terms of fullbacks, but he represents the best of professional rugby.
The Wallabies head to the UK next month on a still unfinalised tour. Whoever they play, the trip will be more gruelling than amateur days. The players know they've got to work for their pay or someone else will.
Those people coming through school, boys now, probably thinking to themselves, this could be an opportunity as a career now.
Burke's immediate challenge is the club competition. His running flair and goal kicking have helped make Eastwood genuine contenders for their first grand final win.
Matthew Burke strikes it cleanly.
Easts were glad to see the back of Burke after last week's 53-point thumping. Tomorrow, the Woodies play Warringah.
In the past, Eastwood sort of faltered in the final series, but I think the guys here are showing great enthusiasm. Just their, like I said before, I mean, the fun of playing football and playing well is what motivates me anyhow. And I think these guys are taking the same attitude and really going out there to have fun.
If Burke's having fun, the opposition won't be. Mark Barlin for Nightline.
As Jim mentioned earlier, one of the LA Dodgers pitchers has fired in a no-hitter against Colorado. The pitcher is a relative newcomer to the US, 28-year-old Japanese player Hideo Onomo. His effort ranks up there with bowling a hat-trick in cricket. Hideo is a superstar in whose homeland all his games have been back live to Japan. I think they're pretty happy with him, Jim. That's the day in sport.
Thank you, Eddie. In finance news, the Australian share market closed 12 points up today. In Tokyo, the Nikkei was up 166 points. In London tonight, the FT 100 is 24 points up in early trading. Gold is fetching $383.45 US an ounce. And in European trading tonight, the Australian dollar is buying 79.01 US cents, 1.19 Deutschmarks, 86 yen and 50p. The national weather, and there's a cold front moving through the southeast, while a low is moving across from the west. The forecasts, fine for Darwin, some rain developing in Brisbane, showers also for Sydney, Canberra, Melbourne, Hobart and Adelaide, and in Perth it should be a fine day ahead. That's the news this Thursday night from all of us here at Nightline. Good night.
Nightline is proudly brought to you by TGIO.